In this lesson, we'll add some trees to our site. Alright, so I took care of the rest of the cars here in the parking spots. So just make sure that everything you put on is going to be on its right level. So let's go on ahead and get our cars. Actually, I'm in the right layer when I said level. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in here. I can say miscellaneous site elements. And I can put people and cars in there if I want to. So we'll grab all our cars, holding down our control button so we can grab multiple here. And we're going to add these bad boys to the miscellaneous layer. So we'll go drop down, we'll say miscellaneous site elements, and we're doing good so far. Now working with trees is pretty fun, and it can really add some life and some character to your site here. So to do it, same thing we've been doing with all our other site components. Window, components, and once this comes up, we can either use what we have here in our sample, or we can go to the 3D warehouse. I recommend trying the 3D warehouse, but being careful with the items you pull in. Some of them you may have to rotate, make some additional adjustments to, but some of them come in just nicely, and I'll show you an example of both. So here we'll do trees. When I just type in trees, it'll bring up 3D and 2D trees, but for now I'm just have a certain set of trees I'm looking for, and it's these guys here. So again, we'll download directly into our project, and it brings in a nice cluster of trees, so I can then start placing these guys where I need them. So I'm place a set there, and I'm going to Control C, Control V, and I'm going to place another set on this side here. That takes care of that for us. You know, if I wanted to create a little bit more randomness to it, we can even rotate these. So I'm going to grab them, go to rotate, and just off to the side I'm going to set my protractor. Just make sure you snap into the right axis here. So let's place them right here. So I just might want to rotate these guys just a little bit, just to give a little sense of randomness and not too planned here. Again, bringing them in here, and the key is making sure you don't have any floating trees or any floating geometry as well. That could really, create a sloppy model there. So you see how nicely those worked for us? And you can already start to see it's getting a little bit choppy on this. So when we didn't have these in, kind of orbiting around was a real smooth look, but you could see a slight choppiness into it. You'll see it more once we start putting in some more vegetation. So this time I'm going to specify 3D trees. I prefer 3D trees because you don't get the paper cut look. So we'll say 3D trees. But what happens is they can tend to eat up a lot of your performance, and you'll see exactly why it'll be important that we handle it the way we did. So this one here is a really nice looking tree. So you can see how this one looks. So go ahead and bring this one in. This one here is so nice that it could probably slow down the performance here. But as I mentioned, you get a couple of them that you bring in, like the one we had here, and all you do was rotate it. But then you get the one like this one, where we have to come in and do some additional work to it. So you can see it comes in on its side, and it has this little line that's inside. So right click, explode. Let's get rid of that line, erase. Now let's grab that tree and let's give it a rotate real quick. So we'll rotate. I'm going to hold down until I get to that red axis. I'm going to rotate this guy 90 degrees. That should help us out here. It's a little bit crooked, no problem, because he's going to go on my hills, and usually a lot of times you'll see crookedness on those hills when it comes to these trees. So now I can grab my move, kind of get out of that command here, hit escape a couple of times. So now go to move, grab the bottom of your tree. I don't want to rotate, I just want to move this guy. Gets a little choppy at times. So then I can just kind of place this where it needs to go. So if we want some of these trees kind of placed throughout, we can place them. But I can see I want to do some additional rotating here. So I'm just going to hold down my mouse button until I click it into the position I want it. Perfect. So now we can go move. And again, no floating geometry. Bring it down to move that on this blue axis. And let's get it on its face so where it sits nicely. So grab it and sink it in just a little bit. Makes it look good right there. And if you wanted to, you can come in here and you can add a mound in there as well. So we could double click here, grab your smooth tool, which you're pretty familiar with now. You can come in here and say, oh, 10 feet, new radius. Come in here and push up, and we can make a nice mound for our tree to kind of sit on. And that's another approach you can take when modeling your trees and stuff. So let's go ahead and come out. So you can see these trees are pretty small compared to everything else. So I can hit that, type S, and let's scale this bad boy. So grab from the opposite corner and let's increase its size just a little bit. Hit enter or escape. We're in good shape. And again, no floating trees, so we're looking good. So now I can kind of take this tree here, and I'll do Control C, Control V, and we can place it around throughout our area here. Control V, Control V, and maybe we want a couple on this side. Control V. We'll add one over here as well. Control V. Now again, I'm going to come by here and I'm going to make sure I have no floating geometry. I may have some floating trees on this side. This one here may actually be floating, and it is. But we know how to take care of that now. Just grab your move button, drop it down along drop it down along the blue axis, and make sure you have the right tree selected. And just sink it down just a little bit. Again, no floating geometry. You want to create a nice clean looking model here. So you see how nicely those 3D trees came out. So you could start to see, if you're orbiting around, you can start to feel the choppiness in here. Now if we had a lot of trees or more high-res trees, this would dramatically affect our performance here. We would essentially try to do a move. We wouldn't move. There would be a delay, 10-15 second delay, and then it would move. And that can really mess with it. I mean, even this slight choppiness can mess with you. But for now, I'm going to select that. I'm going to go ahead and select all my other trees here. Same way on here and here. Now we're going to go add these to the right layer. So check this out. Orbit around when they're shown. You can see it starts to get a little choppy. Now come up here, turn off your tree layer, and now try to orbit. You see how much smoother that works? A lot of less issues, a lot of less drama and problems. So trees and a lot of components can really slow you down. So just be careful about that and make sure you chop it up accordingly. And I noticed something that I need to add this to the right layer. This is not on the correct layer here. When I click on this, this needs to be on my terrain layer. Same thing with this one here. So that's good, but when I double click on it, it still says trees, so let's go ahead and add that to terrain. So there we go. So we're not just limited to trees, let's add some people. So we can hide a person inside here as well. So maybe for our design here, we can have a person inside of it. So I'm going to come into my building here. Now I know I'm in once I get through that glass. Now I'm going to go to Window, Component. Let's type in people. P-E-O-P-L-E. We can either go through the warehouse or we can go through what we have in our system here. Let's see what we have in here. So I'm going to say people, and this is just what's in our favorite. And let's go with some three-dimensional people. And I really don't like these. I'm going to go with a different one here. So let's say 2D people. So I'm going to select a person here. We'll select this guy. We'll download him into our project, Mr. Greg here, and we'll put him in a place where we can kind of see him, and we'll be able to see him from outside. So I'll kind of get out of there. I'll scroll out. What I want to do is I want to check his height as well, because I definitely want him to be visible. So let's measure him up real quick. Yeah, about 6 feet. Close to 6 feet tall, so he's good. So now I'm going to scroll back out. Scroll out, scroll out. So now we have a person inside there. So we can go back to Window, Component. Let's grab Greg again. This time I want to grab Greg. If I want to grab him, I'm going to select on this. This is all my components that I have within my model. So we'll say, give me Greg here again. And maybe we want Greg standing here by a car or something to give us some additional sense of scale. And have one there. Let's add a couple of more throughout. So I'm going to say Control C, Control V. I'm going to add another one here standing by his car. I'm going to add another one here near our building. So there we go. And let's add another guy down here. Looks like we got a bunch of clones here. It's Clone City. But we have people in here. It gives us a sense of scale. Lets us know an idea about the massing of our building. So we're in pretty good shape. So last but not least, let's go ahead and select all our guys here. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and put those guys on the right layer. So we'll say miscellaneous elements. If I click on this, it should be on there. Nope, it's on terrain. So let's just grab them. Come here, Mr. Greg. And we'll grab Greg and we'll put him on our miscellaneous site elements. Do we have any more laying around? I think we have one here and then one inside the building. So select, add to miscellaneous site element. And last but not least, we'll grab the Greg that's up here. We'll do the same thing. And I'm going to add him to miscellaneous site elements. So I don't want to have to scroll. I'm going to go ahead and zoom extents and come back to this particular view here. So now we have our site model pretty much complete here. So it's looking good. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how we can work with shadows to do some studies on this to see how our building affects our site on this micro level. And I'm also going to show you how we can use fog to create some really cool sense of ambiance. And I'm going to show you how we can set up a few scenes. And then once we learn how to do all those things, I'll show you how we can take what we just created, put it into our Google Earth model, and see how it fits into the context of our site and environment. So I'll meet you in the next lesson where we'll play with some shadows and some fog.